How do you accidentally get your best friend fired from their dream job? Cause my buddy Jake just started at this fancy Italian place downtown, and I thought it'd be cool to surprise him by bringing our whole friend group for dinner. So I made reservations for 8 people without telling him, thinking he'd be so excited to see us all there. But when we walked in, Jake's face went completely white. This older guy in a suit was standing behind him with a clipboard. Turns out it was his first solo training night, and his manager was evaluating him. We got seated at a huge table right in the middle of the dining room, and Jake had to be our server. I could see his hands literally shaking as he approached our table. He was trying so hard to stay professional, but I knew him well enough to see the panic in his eyes. When he leaned down to take our orders, he whispered to me, "Dude, what are you doing here? This is my final evaluation." That's when it hit me how badly I'd screwed up, but it was too late. My friends had no idea what was happening and thought this was all part of some fun surprise. Jake started messing everything up because he was so nervous. First, he dropped a whole tray of bread right next to our table, and the crash echoed through the entire restaurant. Everyone turned to look, including his manager, who just shook his head and wrote something down. I felt my stomach drop, watching Jake scramble to pick up the pieces, his face getting redder by the second. The other servers had to come help him clean up, and I could see them exchanging looks like, "Who is this guy?" His manager walked over and said something to Jake that made him nod frantically while apologizing. Then Jake forgot our drink orders twice, even though we'd been friends since middle school, and he knew I always ordered Coke. When he brought us someone else's appetizers, these fancy bruschetta things, I tried to quietly tell him it was okay, but my friends thought it was hilarious and kept being loud about it. Sarah was like, "Jake, you're supposed to be good at this." Everyone laughed. I wanted to crawl under the table. Mike started making jokes about how we should tip him in pizza instead of money, and I finally snapped and told him to chill out. But the damage was already done. I wanted to tell them all to shut up, but I didn't want to make an even bigger scene. I just sat there watching my best friend's confidence crumble with every mistake. The worst part was seeing other customers starting to stare and whisper. His manager kept circling our table like a vulture, taking notes on this little pad and checking his watch every few minutes. At one point, Jake spilled water on himself while refilling our glasses, and I saw him close his eyes for a second, like he was trying not to cry. His white shirt was soaked, and he had to keep working like nothing happened. That's when I realized this wasn't just some job to him. He really needed this. His parents had been on his case about finding work, and he'd been so excited when he got hired, texting me about how this could finally help him pay for college. The worst part was when Dave ordered the most expensive thing on the menu, some $40 veal dish, then complained it was too fancy and asked Jake to bring him chicken nuggets instead. Dave thought he was being funny, but Jake's face just went red with embarrassment. He had to go explain to the kitchen that his friend wanted chicken nuggets at a fine dining restaurant, and I could hear the chef yelling from the back. His manager just stood there taking notes and shaking his head the whole time. I kept trying to catch Jake's eye to mouth, "I'm sorry," but he wouldn't even look at me. When we finally left, I felt sick to my stomach. About an hour later, Jake texted saying his manager told him he needed serious improvement and might not make it past probation. He hasn't answered my calls since. Did I really mess up his career over trying to be supportive?